Design an app for the Six Flags amusement park chain. Hey everyone, welcome back to another Exponent Product Manager mock interview. My name is Kevin Wei and I'm super excited to be doing a product sense question today. So we're going to be doing a product sense, product design type question where we'll test Alex's creativity skills around designing a product. And before we kick things off, Alex, do you want to give a quick intro about who you are and what you do?
Yeah, absolutely. Hey guys, I'm Alex. I have 4 years of product management experience. First 1 year at Microsoft and then 3 years at Meta, where I was part of the rotational PM program and then a full-fledged PM. I worked on a variety of things, stories, gaming, AR glasses, and then ultimately ads. I personally love interviewing. I've given over 100 of these, and I think set the record for rotational PMs giving interviews. So really excited to be seeing you all today. I'm currently in Indiana with extended family, but I'll be moving to Palo Alto soon to start at Stanford GSB.
Nice, very exciting. So here's the question that we're going to be talking about today. So Alex, design an app for the Six Flags amusement park chain.
Gotcha. So I'll start off, as I always do, with some general clarifying questions here. So first of all, when you say app, I assume you mean mobile app, like iPhone, Android, that kind of thing.
We can assume it's like an iPhone or Android app, yeah.
Got it. And then is this for a specific like region, country, worldwide?
Yeah, so some context, Six Flags only has parks in North America, so why don't we just focus on like the US or North America region?
Got it. And this app, is it going to be externally facing, like to customers slash park goers, internally facing to employees, up to me? How does that look?
Yeah, great question. I'll leave this up to you based on whatever justifications you'd like to bring to the table.
Got it. Okay, so overall sounds pretty open-ended. Are there any other specific constraints not yet mentioned that I should be aware of?
No, if you do have any other questions, feel free to ask me, but I think this is enough for us to get going here.
Perfect. Sounds good, Kevin. We'll do. So we'll start off. I'll just lay out the overall structure that I plan on taking with this, and then you can let me know if that's what you're looking for. So overall, pretty standard structure with some bells and whistles. I'll start off with some broader context, give context of what I know about the park, its competitors, as well as like writing a mission statement, so to speak, for this app. Then I will move on to audience, specifically narrow down to an exact segment of users that we are optimally building for. Next, I'll do the same with user needs, enumerate a bunch of them, and then get a small constellation of needs that we want to focus on. And then lastly, I will move on to solutions, brainstorm a set of possible features of this app, and then prioritize a few based on an MVP. And then maybe we can talk metrics or something if we have time at the end. How does that all sound?
Cool. Yeah, sounds good.
Cool. All right. So as I mentioned, I'll start off with the broader context. So I'm going to take some notes for a minute or two, and then I'll be right back to you. All right, I'm all ready. So first of all, some broader context about what I know about Six Flags. So as you mentioned, it's a large amusement park chain in North America. Amusement parks here meaning the most archetypal definition of the word. So you got roller coasters, you got other rides, you got kiddie rides, games, food, all that kind of thing. And I'd say it's distinct from a Disney World per se, where that's more about the overall experience. This is really about the direct attractions. Overall, it's the kind of thing that attracts young people and families. Entrance price is probably somewhere around $50. It's something that people will mostly go to once a year or less. And although some people, especially those that live closer, can get season passes. First of all, just make sure with you, Kevin, does that all sound like a good overview?
Sure, yeah, this sounds like the Six Flags I have in mind.
Perfect. So next we'll talk about competition. I always love to discuss these in these interviews. And this is an interesting one because most of the time Six Flags doesn't actually have any direct competition. I actually grew up in Gurnee, Illinois, right next to Six Flags Great America. And as far as I'm aware, there are no other large theme parks in the entire Chicago area. And so on the surface, there's no competition, but if you dig a little bit deeper, there is lots of competition. First of all, there are other day outings. You got zoos, you got beaches, uh, everything there. But then you also have competition in staying in the home, or going to other people's homes, watching movies, things that are much less logistics intensive. And in fact, we'll get to this later, but it does make me think that making it less logistically intensive could be a really great use case of this app. So that's competition. Then I have an overall mission statement just to ground us in my overall thinking as we go through the rest of the problem. And that is assist with the overall park going experience. Not the prettiest mission statement in the world. I'm sure we could spend some time in a boardroom wordsmithing it. But the keyword I want to call out here is assist. For a couple of reasons. So first of all, as I mentioned, it's very logistically intensive. There's a lot to do. And so an app that can help people do things, can streamline the process and make it easier would be super useful. And then second, I use assist because it is inherently a secondary word. This app is not the core experience. If someone comes to the park and they have this amazing immersive entertainment app, I can guarantee you it's not going to be as immersive as that giant roller coaster. And so really building something that can unlock the core value prop of the park in an assisting way is really important to me. So how does that all sound?
Yeah, this sounds good. Where would you go from here?
Yeah, next I'd like to talk about the audience. I think there's a fine line to walk here. I want to narrow it down enough so that we can like really serve these users, yet still keep those users broad enough such that it's worth building the app in the first place. So if you don't mind, I'll take a moment and we can dive right into that.
Yeah, sounds good.
All right, so I would like to narrow down the audience in three different ways, and I'll walk you through them and then give you a chance to ask any questions if needed. So first of all, it comes back to the question I asked at the very beginning: is this going to be externally facing, i.e., to the park goers and customers, or internally facing to the employees? To me, it's very clear that we want this to be externally facing. And the reason is because externally, the use case is much more the same between all the people, and the kind of mass communication and standardization that an app provides is really useful for that. Employees, everyone's got a different job, literally by nature, and so we can communicate with them in other ways, and would not need an app for that. So for that, I'm choosing externally facing. Second, I'd like to narrow down the specific demographic. I mentioned that Six Flags is commonly families and young people. So I'm dividing this into three groups: parents, children, and we'll call them teenagers, although you would lump, college students and other young adults in there too. And so among these, I think it's pretty clear for me to choose the parents for two reasons here. So first of all, I would assume, this is an assumption I'm going to make, but I'll be shocked if the data doesn't show this, that most of the people are families, especially given that each individual person needs their own tickets. You have a family of five, that's 5 tickets. I'll assume that's the overwhelming majority. And then second, I'd rather not focus on the children because, again, our mission to assist, and with the focus on intensive logistics. And that'll just be inherently handled by the parent rather than the child if they're there with the parent. And then third, I'd like to narrow down based where people are in our funnel, very broadly defined. You could say that someone has never heard of Six Flags, that they're considering going to Six Flags, that they go to Six Flags maybe once in a blue moon, or that they go frequently. And with this one, I'd like to choose once in a blue moon. I think earlier on, it's more of a marketing push. And if you're trying to get a message out to people, they're not going to download an app. They might not even know to download an app in some cases. And so a TV commercial, I think, for example, would much better suit them. And then I think the super regular users, while they would in theory use the app frequently, the logistics get a lot easier for them. They know where all the bathrooms are. They know like what's the best order to do the rides, all that kind of thing. And so for that reason, I'm choosing once in a blue moon. So to recap, we are focusing on, let's say, customer parents that go to Six Flags occasionally.
Got it. So just to play that back to you, it sounds like you're picking parents over children and young adults just due to reach and impact. Just like most of the people who are visiting are going to be parents, and this is where we'll have the most impact if we want to reduce the logistical burden here. So we'll be picking parents. And how would you define occasional or once in a blue moon in terms of frequency?
Yeah, good question. I'll say once every 1 to 5 years. And I'm sure we could segment the data most generally, but anecdotally from the people that I know that go to Six Flags like, very occasionally, it's some have every year going, some have like whatever they feel like it, which is every few years.
Okay. And are these people who are also going to have the highest sort of need for logistical help?
I would say so, yes, because people that go more often become more familiar with the park and the processes and everything that it takes. That's not to say that the people that come regularly wouldn't have any use for the app, but I think we should really build things that help you. And we might be getting ahead of ourselves here, but might help you like
Hmm.
navigate the park, for example, find food, things like that, that
Cool.
those more hardcore users might already know about.
Cool. Sounds good. I'll turn it back to you and see where you want to go from here.
Perfect. So again, to recap, we're looking to assist with the overall experience, and we are targeting parents who come once in a blue moon. So next, I would like to focus on user needs and kind of do basically the same or a similar exercise as narrowing down to the audience. But for this one, I'm just going to take a moment, list out as many needs I can think of, then I'll very quickly read through them, and then I can move forward to prioritizing. How does that sound?
Great. Yeah, sounds good.
So overall, I'm going to enumerate all these needs. I'll just say I would generally put these needs into two buckets. One being functional needs, like things that are very utilitarian, like park the car is one of them. And then also what I'm calling, for lack of a better term, aspirational needs. These are the touchy-feely type needs. How do they need to feel to get a meaningful experience? And I'm not, these are two categories just for the sake of explaining them. I'm not inherently prioritizing one category over another. Rather, I'm prioritizing the individual needs specifically. So I'll just very quickly run through them. There's a lot of them. So as I'm moving through them, just stop me if you ever want me to explain more.
Hmm.
So functional needs: get to the park, park the car, get a ticket, understand what attractions are available, navigate the park, plan around ride lines, eat, and go to the bathroom. Now, aspirational needs, I think these ones get a little more interesting. They need to be entertained and to witness their children being entertained. They need to occupy their children in these long lines. They want to tailor their experience to their own family, feel like they are choosing their experience. They want to feel safe. They want to be able to document the experience. They so awkwardly worded. They want to feel like the bodily needs are attended to. It's a really cringy way of saying food, bathroom. Kids are very
Hmm.
finicky. And then the last fun one I put is they want a sense of discovery, of finding something new, of seeing something new around the corner. Um, so those are all the needs. If I don't need to explain any of them further, I can take a moment to just prioritize a couple of them that I think are most relevant given our mission.
Yeah, just zooming out a bit and asking sort of like a meta question. So we talked about how parents have the highest logistical like barriers. We talked about how, I asked you the question like whether like occasional or once in a blue moon visitors have like the highest logistical barriers. Are we going in a direction where we've listed out functional and aspirational needs and we're going to see how we can build a solution where we can reduce the logistical burden for these users? Or like what's the goal that we're moving towards here?
Exactly. It's the mission I wrote is to assist with the experience. In fact, I might even say a better way of wording it is what you said, is reduce the overall logistical burden. Essentially saying the same thing, although I think you said it a bit better.
Okay.
I would say this does not necessarily mean that we're immediately going towards functional things. I think
Hmm.
both are important. In fact, it's the feeling of logistical burden that's actually more important than the logistical burden itself. Each individual element isn't particularly burdensome, but it's the overall overwhelmingness that I think can turn people away from an amusement park experience.
Cool. Cool, cool. Yeah, awesome. We're on the same page about the goals here. Yeah, would love to see where you go from here after you've listed all these different pain points.
So I have picked three needs, not to say the other needs are irrelevant, but I need to be ruthless, especially for building an MVP. And then we can always focus on other needs later once the core product is available. So it's two functional and one aspirational. Functional needs are understanding what activities and attractions are available. To me, this is just so core. As I said, it's not like Disney World that's just this overall experience that you can really go through. It's really about like, okay, I do this and then this and then this, and it's not particularly pretty or magical, to use a Disney term, in the middle. So I think that's just absolutely critical. Second one related to that, they need to be able to navigate these parks. These places are sprawling. I'd be walking around the whole Six Flags where I grew up would probably take like at least a half hour, maybe 45 minutes, like all the way around. And that was if you didn't stop anywhere. And so being able to navigate the park to me is so critical. And the last one, aspirational, my most important, although most poorly worded, is feeling like the bodily needs are attended to. This really cuts into the parent use case. Given that kids, someone has to go to the bathroom, someone else is hungry, someone's tired, to really be able to assist with that is absolutely key. I don't know if you've ever been to an amusement park, but you look, there's meltdowns all around you. And so those are the three needs that I have chosen to advance our mission of assisting with the experience or reducing the burden of the experience.
Cool. Were these the functional and aspirational needs that were like the highest barriers to parents having a good time? Like I'm trying to understand what the criteria was for why you picked these and not the other ones.
Great question. You know what? I forgot to mention that. The biggest criteria here is just how much I thought it cut into the mission. And so, in other words, yes, exactly what you said. These seem to be the highest priority things. And I think the way it turned out, a lot of these are very high priority just because they're so frequently. So it's not to say that parking your car isn't a high priority. You could say it's the highest priority because otherwise you're not going to get there. But that happens once. Whereas these, I found, just reduce the overall I should say, they create the overall logistical burden because they need to be done so frequently. Does that make sense?
Yeah, that makes sense. It sounds like frequency and just like impact to the goal is what you were using to prioritize these three over the other pain points.
Yes, frequency and impact. Well, I would say basically yes, but I would say impact above all. And it just so happens that this impact comes through frequency. If there was something on this list that was so horrible and so painful, but only happened once a day, that would get prioritized.
Got it. Okay. Cool. Yeah, this sounds good.
Perfect. So now let's move on to, I think we're ready to move on to solutions if you're fine with that. Just a brief recap, we are focusing on reducing the overall burden of or overall logistical burden, I should say, of the Six Flags experience for parents that come once in a blue moon by focusing on helping them understand the activities, navigate the park, and having all the bodily needs of their family attended to while they're at the park. So with that, I am going to turn a new page and I'm going to write down as many solutions as I can think of. It'll take like a minute or two.
Sure. Yeah, sounds good.
All right, I'm ready. So again, like with the needs, I just tried to list as many as humanly possible. So I'll run through them really quick. And if there's anyone that I explain too quickly or that doesn't make sense, just let me know. And I'm happy to elaborate more. So first is a park map with the live location of the user available on it. Second is indexed information on each thing in the map. So that's every food stall, every bathroom, every ride, attraction, game, etc. Second is the ability to search to find the nearest X. So that can be food, bathroom, anything like that where you just need something nearby. Next, we have recommendations for given age ranges. So you could input the age of your child and say, oh, they'll love this kiddie ride, or oh, maybe they'll like this more thrilling ride, something like that. Next, we have wait times. A lot of times, you can have like 2-3 hour lines at some point for some of the top rides at these parks. And the parks often already show how long it'll take. So putting that in the app would be very beneficial. You could have the ability for them to purchase a fast pass while they're waiting in line to be able to skip the line. You can have some of the more fun ones, an AR scavenger hunt. So you could hold the phone up. This would be something kind of more direct as children. You could hold the phone up and have an interesting experience there. Find treasure hunt for certain things like that. You could have licensed content in line. So for example, there's like a specific, I don't know, like Netflix only for Six Flags, or like something like an airline would have, where there's specific things that people can watch to occupy themselves in line. And then last one is a monetization play. the app after the person's leave. There could be upsells months or years later for them to come back, maybe specific deals and things like that. So those are the overall ideas. I think some are more related to the mission than others, and so I'll prioritize based on that. But first, I just wanted to see if you had any questions about any of them.
Yeah. So let's say, we're building this app for Six Flags. We know that we want to reduce the logistical burden for parents who are coming once in a blue moon.
Exactly.
And let's say that Six Flag also has a sort of goal in mind also of visitors riding a certain number of rides. Maybe the data scientist for Six Flags has told you like, hey, we found that visitors who come once in a blue moon, like once they ride like n number of rides, then they truly like find the value of like riding like these thrilling roller coasters.
Oh, I see. Okay.
So with this like new information, with this new data, which one of these? I love how you've kind of like given me a bunch of solutions, right? Like which one do you think you would pick now that you have this additional information?
Yeah, that is. I can tell you there are definitely some that I will not pick. Sorry, AR scavenger hunt. Not going to happen this time. Maybe next year. But yeah, I'll take a minute to think through this, especially with that new information, and then I'll prioritize both based on the overall mission in specific context of these rides. So to say all in one statement, to reduce the logistical burden and allow people to experience as many attractions as possible. Is that kind of what you're saying?
Yeah, that's what I was saying. That sounds good. And after you pick the solution, I'd love to hear sort of like an end-to-end experience of what it looks like and how you would test or how you would launch this feature.
I would like this MVP solution to be a combination of 5 of the features. Honestly, some of the more small features that we could release all as once as the first version. So this is first of all the park map with live location. To me, that's just the cornerstone. I can't see any Six Flags visitor experience app existing without this, especially because the parks are so sprawling. Next is the information on each specific item, along with like what age range it's recommended for. We can bundle that in one, connect it to the map. Third is, I also believe is a critical feature, is finding the nearest X. So that's bathroom, food, make sure everyone is taken care of. So I think those are important to the mission regardless, table stakes. I think, as you said, with people riding the most rides, I think then 2 features that become especially palatable are, first of all, wait times. So people can really make those choices. Is it worth walking 15 minutes for Batman just to wait in an hour and a half line? Or can we ride the Whirligig? I'm using actual ride names. That's right here immediately for a 5-minute wait time. And so that'll help people make those choices and honestly encourage people to ride more rides. And then the next one is the fast pass purchase ability. That way, people that want to ride more and want to get ahead of the line to experience as much as they can in that day are able to do so. So I'd say this is a combination of those 3, like absolutely table stakes. Any app has to have features, and then these 2 features to increase the number of rides people go on.
Okay. These are all like great features. They all definitely, the park with the map, finding nearby things to do. Like these definitely sound like P0s. What does the experience look like though? Like let's say I'm a parent. This is my first time visiting Six Flags in like 2 or 3 years. I'm walking in the front gate with my my spouse or my kids. Like what am I experiencing now?
Yeah, absolutely. So I'm going to talk about 2 components here, with the second component being the app experience help, but the first component being how do they get the app? It doesn't just show up on the phone, right? And I actually see this as a pain point because picture you're there with your family, you're sweaty, you just waited 30 minutes in line for a ticket, you got through security, it's all done, and then you get in, and of course there will be signs to like download the app. But people might not do that immediately. So I think it's important to show the value prop and then to have additional messaging around the park that people can download the app, particularly in lines for rides. I think that'll be very, very critical to encourage people to download the app and to show its value. So that's kind of how you get into the app. The app experience itself, I would say the core feature, like really like the home screen that everything comes from, is really going to be that map, because you can really get to anywhere from it and it'll help you spatially orient yourself in the park. And so from that map, that's where you can get to the information on each thing, as well as the age recommendation. That's where you can search on the map, just like with Google Maps, like find the nearest X. Um, and then as well as finding the wait times. And then once you get into the individual ride descriptions, that's where you can purchase the fast pass. So overall, I think it'll be a relatively simple app, which I think is important given that people are using it for the first time, that centers on the map. And then as you click in, additional functionality is unlocked. Does that answer the question, or should I go in more depth?
Yeah. Let's say that I think that definitely answers my question, right? It sounds like you're definitely digitizing a lot of the frequent manual experiences that people are doing. You're coming in, the first thing you see is the map, and you're able to double click and look into, what are the nearest things to do or some of the other pain points that you wanted to solve for. How would you test this out to see that this is a better experience to help reduce logistical burden versus like the manual ways these parents are currently finding their ways around the park?
Yeah, yeah, great question. So the simplest possible answer, and it's not a good answer, is just to launch the minimum viable product and put up the signs and see if people use it and what happens. However, I think we can do better than that. I think we can be scrappy, especially because we're very resource constrained. In fact, they compared bankruptcy like 12 years ago. We're brought back from the dead, so we're gonna run a tight ship.
Mm-hmm.
Um, I think how I would do it in practice. It would start with like very broad user research to understand the overall pain points. And that could even include, like, with their permission, obviously, like following a family around the park to see what they do and what the most frequent pain points are that they encounter, given that frequency is so heavily correlated with logistical burden. Um, Second, then I think we could release the, like, almost pre-MVP, we can call it, of just very simply the map with descriptions, and see if people are using it, track if people are using it not just once, but multiple times in a day to indicate that it's useful. And then those can both be stepping stones that if it gets a green flag at both of those, then we could ultimately build the MVP. At first glance, that's how I would go to market.
Okay, and what would you be measuring in like during this experiment?
Yeah, great question. Do you want me to go full out in like determining a target metric, or more just in broad strokes?
I'd love to just hear like what a target metric is, and maybe if you wanted to propose a counter metric, that'd be helpful too.
Yeah, yeah, that would be great. I'm gonna take a moment to think about that, and then I'll just do as before, list a few, and then pick one and tell you why.
Yeah, you could just for the sake of time, you can just pick one. Just pick a target metric and maybe a counter metric.
And then just to be clear, maybe I should have asked this to me. What is your exact definition of a counter metric? Because that's where you get weird. Is it a guardrail? Is it a counter? How would you define counter?
So let's say that you are a PM for a new team at Six Flags that never had a PM before. So it's really up to you on how you want to define that. The team is just looking for you to help launch this successfully.
Got it, got it. But the counter specifically, that's basically just how do we know that we're not gaming the metric in this sense?
Yeah, we can define it as such.
So at first glance, my metric is the number of users that are using the app at least 5 times in one day per week. So I'll just briefly explain what that is. So overall number of people, they need to use it at least 5 times, because that shows some sort of stickiness, rather than just trying it out once and saying, this isn't useful, putting it away, never to be seen again. And that's in a given day, or that's 5 times in a given day, because that's the amount of time people will spend at these parks. And then I said per week because that can mitigate some of the ups and downs that you'll get via like weekend, weekday, that kind of thing, without being too lagging. So does that make sense?
So you're trying to measure whether an adult, a parent, who is an occasional user, is coming to the park and is downloading and using the app at least 5 times during their visit.
Almost. I would say yes, except the beginning part. I would actually be measuring all users, because if someone else who's a young adult finds utility in the app, then that's great. That's a win. The specific parent subsegment is more about prioritizing needs and exactly what we're going to build. But this app is open to anyone, and therefore I would consider its use, as long as it's good use by anyone, as a success.
Okay. And Okay, and what would the counter metric here be?
The counter metric, I would say, as defined by to making sure we're not gaming it overall, is just quite simply comparing it against the number of people in the park. And this is pretty simple. Basically, if your usage doubles, but the number of people going to the park doubles, that's not really a win for the app, especially if you have like the same number of signs advertising for it. And in fact, if you wanted to get really, really fancy, you could bundle these metrics into one like mega metric, counter metric, and do a percentage.
Okay, cool, cool. Cool. I think we're good for this mock interview. Thanks for walking me through this exercise. And I'd love also just for the rest of the video, I'd love if you can give the audience maybe some tips on how they might want to approach like a product sense question. Maybe if they're interviewing at Meta, for example.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm actually so so glad you asked. I had some tips written down that I was going to ask you at the beginning, if I could say at the end, and then of course forgot to ask you. So I'm glad. So I can't speak to the rubric used as Meta at Meta specifically. There's like an NDA there, but I can give plenty of tips that will be useful at Meta and a variety of other companies. And I actually, in writing these, I specifically optimize for tips that I don't see in the canon of PM interview prep as often as I think they deserve to be. So I'll just run through them pretty quickly. First of all, is I would say take time to think. Like at each new section, take time to think. In fact, if this video gets posted, when it gets posted, the parts where I'm taking time to think will likely be cut out. I promise you, you want to take time to think. Most candidates don't do this, and I've learned that it's objectively correct because it allows your answer to be much more structured and thorough. Second, I'm going to say very broadly is keep your interviewers engaged. So an ugly little truth about interviewing is that many, if not most interviewers find it to be like kind of a drag. It takes them away from the rest of their day. And a lot of them think it's the most boring part of their day. I don't personally, I love giving them, but that's the mentality that a lot of interviews are going to go in there with. And so it's important to see it as a performance and making sure that their eyes aren't glazing over.
Yeah, I mean, like if you put yourselves in the interviewer's shoes, like this is probably like the sixth meeting you have during the day, and then now the recruiter put some time on your calendar, was like, hey, come talk to this candidate, and
Oh, exactly. Exactly. Yeah, it's true. Just a couple sub parts of that. I would say just make sure you're not rambling. You can ask the interviewer, does that make sense, to like make sure that they're like listening and engaged. And then I would say third is just show that you're enjoying it. This sounds really vague, but I promise when candidates are really enjoying themselves and having fun with it, I have a lot more fun as an interviewer too, which I mean, it doesn't affect the actual evaluation, but it does keep me as an interviewer engaged. Third, I would say is be as ridiculously structured as you can be. Sometimes with these interviews, the muse comes and you have amazing ideas. Sometimes the ideas are okay, but a very repeatable thing that you can do successfully is just be super structured. Say first this, then this, then this. You can recap things. A really good guy giving advice on this is in the consulting space, Victor Chung. If anyone knows who he is, he talks about consulting interviews and how to be structured there. So hopefully this isn't too long. I've got a couple more. Fourth, I would say you'll want to scope down the problem early. I think a lot of these interviews are very intentionally vague, sometimes like crazily vague. And so if you don't scope it down, you can go in a certain direction and then get done by the interviewer for not explaining why you're going in that direction, when in reality, you could have just taken a minute to say, okay, well, what does movies mean? Does it mean like created content on YouTube or like professionally produced on Netflix? And making that distinction will make you come off much better as a candidate. And then the last one I wanted to say, and what I did here is try your best to just brainstorm a lot of things. I found that this is what can separate a good candidate from a really, really good candidate. And in fact, I would push candidates to see how many things they can think of. Canonically, it's 3. Like if you read some of the interview books, it's 3 examples, but try to think of 5, 10, whatever you can. Even if you end up eliminating them, it's a really good way to show your creativity. So anyway, that was a lot of talking, but Kevin, do you have anything to add to those?
Yeah, I thought those were great pieces of advice. I think especially just the whole structure thing. Like especially now more than ever, we're all interviewing very remotely. There's no whiteboard. You can't read body language. Being able to like show structure, like tell the interviewer what you're gonna say, tell them, and then tell them again what you just said. Like this is really gonna ingrain like what you're trying to say. Your interviewer again, like putting yourself in the interview. Like they've probably gone through 6 meetings in the day. They're very tired. Now they have to like talk to you. They're probably typing like your responses into like some kind of internal feedback form. So they might not be like hearing everything you're saying. They might be focused on like typing what you're saying. So like being able to reiterate like the most important things that you're trying to say just to make sure that it's in that feedback form is very helpful. Other than that, yeah, go ahead.
No, I just said absolutely. Could not agree more. In fact, being structured might be the most important of these. I would say it's just so critical, and it's a very learnable skill.
Cool. Great, Alex. Well, that's all for today's video. And for the viewers watching at home, thanks for tuning in and good luck with your upcoming PM interview.
Thanks so much for watching. Don't forget to hit the like and subscribe buttons below to let us know that this video was valuable for you. And of course, check out hundreds more videos just like this at tryexponent.com. Thanks for watching and good luck on your upcoming interview.